We have DeAndre from Bandlez, and alongside him, the CEO of Soundry AI, a text-to-sample AI model for producers, Mark Buckler.
I'm like the so-called AI tech bro.
Yo, I'm gonna flex some tech muscles.
Besides that, he's Bandlez. What gave you the trust in DeAndre to step into the position that you have him in?
You have to earn the trust of people who are willing to do shit for you for free.
DeAndre, what do you actually do for Soundry?
He's our front end and has been helping us with some back end as well.
Was it gonna be possible?
What's called a micro entity.
The sky's the limit.
It's cool to make powerful stuff, but like, what is the point of making something powerful? The goal of sort of what we're trying to do. We think about it like we don't create paintings for you. We give you an awesome paintbrush.
On the scale of green to expert, what level kind of do you need to be at least to use Soundry?
I could go on any website and ask for, make me a tropical house banger, or like, make me a breakup song. I use that as an example because that's what I do. It really hammers home the point that we're trying to be artists first, and we're trying to teach people that AI's tools don't have to be scary.
All right, so I'm so excited for today's episode because we have DeAndre from Bandlez, and alongside him, the CEO of Soundry AI, a text-to-sample AI model for producers, Mark Buckler. Welcome to the show, guys. How are we?
Doing good, man. Doing
great.
good.
Thanks for the
Good to be
invite.
chatting.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you here. Bandlez, I've been a fan of your guys' music for a long time. You guys have been working with Disciple for forever, since I've started listening to EDM, so awesome to have you on the show. But we are gonna, like I said, gonna do something a little different. We're gonna primarily talk about the AI company that you work for and then also that Mark owns and started. So I have a lot of questions, but I wanted to start with the kind of how Bandlez got connected to you guys and kind of the foundation of your guys' relationship and kind of where this all started.
Yeah, if you told me this shit was going to be possible,
Yeah,
like,
right.
I would have told you, So yeah, I mean, so I'm from Philly, right outside of Philly too. Going to high school. My parents fought to kind of like get me to a better situation. We were kind of living in the hood low key, so they hooked it up and tried to give us an opportunity to go to better schools and make some friends. So fast forward to that, went to high school, met Vishal, which is the other half of Bandlez. And he was like, yo, dude, like there's this shit called dubstep, it's really cool. And my dad always made hip hop and kind of just like more chill beats and stuff, and I used to think it was super whack, low-key, because I was a guitar boy with long hair, and I was like, that's not real music.
Long hair gang.
Yeah. So I just started making stuff with Vishal, man. Went to college, and then during college, we actually connected with the Barely Alive guys and started playing League of Legends with them. Vishal did. I just like sat in the call chilling, and and then we connected with the Disciple guys and started touring and dropped out of school and disappointed my parents, but now they're cool with it. So that's where we're at.
How did you guys first meet, and how far back does your guys' relationship go with Mark?
I guess like, I don't know, maybe to start, I guess I could talk about like my musical background as well, because
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
it's very different from DeAndre's, but there's a lot of similarities as well.
You come from an engineering background. I did some
That's true.
research on you, and yeah.
That's true, but I guess like part of the joy of like starting Soundry really is the sort of like the marrying the two ideas of music and engineering like in my life, because both have been there sort of from the very beginning. Like I started playing violin at like the age of 6, and I like was in a Suzuki program for a while, which was wild, and I've always been sort of a rebel. And so I just basically pissed off all the teachers who were like teaching me Suzuki training, which is like super strict, And I ended up like finally finding like a sort of one-on-one tutor who would like let me play folk songs, which is like what I wanted to do, and ended up doing that like just like even on the bus, just like playing the violin and shit. It was kind of silly, but it was very fun. So that's kind of how I got started in music before I got into dubstep. But yeah, this is sort of where I came from the musical perspective.
Nice. Yeah. So then you went on to, where'd you graduate college? Because I know, like I said previously, you have an engineering background. You have a PhD as well. You went as far as getting your, doctorate degree. Where did you actually graduate from? Were there different places, or I know some people go to different colleges for their different degrees?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, RPI for undergrad, did a master's at UMass Amherst, and then Cornell for PhD. So I've been all over the place, but mostly East Coast. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's awesome that you actually, going back to what you originally said, was not only did you get, all the engineering stuff and all the schooling, that's what you did school for, but you actually used it to do something that you're actually passionate about. Because I feel like so many people like get an engineering degree or whatever, and maybe not go as far as you did, but just bachelor's, you can work for Apple, Intel, one of those companies, and they almost get like stuck in like they don't see that they can use those degrees for something in a field that they actually enjoy being a part of.
Dude,
so I think that's awesome.
That was the shit that scared me, man. Going to college, I was like, I don't want to just be a code monkey at Google or whatever, And like my parents, obviously, like my parents, to them, they're second generation pretty much, and they were like, yes, go to Google, be a code monkey, make 6 figures, do your thing.
Yeah, it is a secure job, but I don't know, unless you're not. So, I mean, and also there's also the people who just don't have a passion for something too. So it's like it's a secure job, it's a good job, and it pays well. So, but it's awesome that you actually used it to do something you like. So DeAndre, what do you actually do for Soundry, and like what did the foundation of this relationship? Where did this kind of start?
Yeah, so like obviously I've been running around the world 5-6 years now. I've been signed to Circle, UTA, Grave Dancer, like now I'm on Corson. Like I've been doing the touring thing for a while, and I was actually kind of exploring going back to some sort of tech thing, and I was really just trying to figure out how I was going to intersect music and tech. So my role is I'm the chief of product. I'm in charge of designing the tools and then working with the engineering department and obviously like our users and trying to just kind of like formulate a plan of like how we can turn AI into something that's useful for people. And
got it.
Obviously, yeah.
So you're more on the consumer end of it then, kind of.
Yeah. Honestly, so right now, obviously, we've been around for a little over a year or so. And we all do a little bit of everything. Sometimes we're all
like
just
any startup.
yeah, exactly. So like it's been really cool, but yeah, primarily just product management and building out a plan for the tools for sure.
Very cool. And then Mark, I guess I had this question kind of going alongside that. How did you guys first meet, and when did the friendship start? Because I know that's probably what came first.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I run a crew called the Codex Collective here in Seattle, and we run like bass music shows, basically local stuff. Nothing really big, but we have a lot of fun with it. And so, as a part of that, I got to meet a lot of people in sort of bass music community here in Seattle. And one of my friends, Greg, was like, "Hey, you're talking about like sample creation and that kind of a thing. Like, do you know that like I'm kind of friends with like the guy from Bandlez, and like he's gonna be here like tomorrow?" And I was like, what?
Okay.
I didn't even know Bandlez was playing, and now I get to find out that I can like have dinner with this guy, And so yeah, we really just like had a kind of a chill dinner. And I tried to be chill, because I was like, you can't like pitch something too hard, right? Because then it comes off kind of bad. But I basically just kind of lay down, what I thought made sense, which is just like generative AI is amazing. We got to be like really respectful of like, how we make it. We got to make sure that it's useful for the people who are making art. And also like, being good about training data, but ultimately it's powerful and it can like be extremely beneficial. And, for me, like I really sort of like, I'm not very good at sound design, but I really appreciate like really high quality sound design. And like, I wanted to create a product which could help me with sound design, right?
That's absolutely what Soundry does. So yes.
Yeah. So yeah, and then DeAndre, I guess you didn't hate me immediately, so
no, you're so modest. No, we hit it off. We kind of like broed out for a little bit because like I just got done doing like I don't know like hours and hours of lead code a week, trying to be like, yo, I'm gonna flex some tech muscles, get back into the game, Meanwhile, playing shows, and it was really cool to kind of like connect with someone who had the passion for like intersection of music and tech because. Sometimes you think about those two worlds as like two separate things, but when you're standing on stage with like CDJ3s and they're just basically iPads, you realize, it's pretty much the same shit. So, but yeah, we had a great time, man. And like Mark is obviously, he's one of the most impressive people I've met, right? So obviously you have goals, you have aspirations, but when I heard all the things that he's done and more importantly, what he was trying to do, I was like, I didn't even know this is possible. I need to be a part of this.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, I've been using. I follow like kind of. I wouldn't call myself a nerd, but I do like keeping up on tech, and I've been using especially with this podcast and having my own project, and you need technology to do that. And music production is kind of lives in the same world. But I've been using stuff that's been coming out for podcasts as far as like AI, like, doing just our camera work. There's a software for that. Doing some of the like audio technicality stuff. There's some AI that we use there, and making clips that we use AI to make social media stuff. Like there's so many different things, and I think it's so helpful. And what I really want to talk about is why people, I know there's a big fear around AI, and I just want to talk about like why people are fearful, and like, I mean, a lot of it is uncertainty, but what is your guys' opinion on like that topic of people kind of being fearful and uncertain of AI?
Yeah, you can kick that one off, Mark.
I guess like that's funny. I was thinking you should probably kick it off because I'm like the so-called AI tech bro.
Yeah, right. You're like, I'm not scared of it. I work with it all day.
I'm saying, dude, honestly, it's some of it's helpful, some of it's destructive. I gotta be honest. Like the problem is that you have a type of technology that's capable of learning, right? So a lot of times we think of that process as human. The process of learning is very human, right?
Very, yeah. Intellect is human, yeah.
Right. So when you start talking about learning, but leveraging a machine learning, it can be scary. And I think what's really important is to remember that the technology is shifting such that that's possible. There's going to be bad actors. There's going to be people that do destructive things. And if you feel passionately about how this technology should be applied, you need to take the reins, because no one else is going to do it. You can't guarantee that someone else is going to do it. So if you have a vision for how that should ethically be applied to an industry you really care about, you got to take the steering wheel, man. Like, or else you're just lying to yourself and everyone around you, because you're just leaving it in the fate of, the Black Rocks of the world or whatever, like Illuminatis of the world, that are going to basically just automate everything.
Now, does it come down? I know with AI, there's a series of inputs that you need to get X output, right? That's kind of how it works. There's an input that the human usually has in control of the input for the AI producing an output. With that, depending on the software, is there certain software developers that could develop like a bad software versus like a good software? And what does that look like? What's the difference?
Yeah, maybe I might take that. So I guess like there's a few different ways of thinking about this, right? Because like good and bad are kind of very broad concepts, So like it might be more helpful to talk about like specific bad things, and how to avoid them. So like for example, like if you are in a situation where, you're sort of like fully automating art, right? Like if you're saying like, like these artists are inherently not valuable. I don't respect them. And so what I want to do is completely remove them from like the world. And that is just, yeah. And that's stupid, right? Just fundamentally. Like there's no, like, not only is it mean spirited, but it's also fundamentally wrong, because like what is the point of art if not trying to represent the human experience, right? Like, so I want to be, sort of very clear that like, the goal of sort of what we're trying to do from like, how do we not do that, right? Is to be sort of like an enabler, rather than someone who's trying to replace artists. And we think about it like we don't create paintings for you. We give you an awesome paintbrush,
Yes, yeah, that's what I was going to say too. It's creating samples. It's not creating the whole vision. It's not creating the whole feel. It's just creating sounds that you're using for that bigger picture, for that creative output. So yeah, in a sense, it is just a tool. So instead of that, I think like a year or two ago, I forget whose show it even was on, but there was a podcast that I listened to that was talking about like things like Spotify and stuff. And I think Spotify even might have this already, but can create songs start to finish and completely remove like the creative process. I don't know much about that. What can you give me examples of like what something like that may be and where that exists?
Yeah, so there's actually like a crazy high number of music AI companies. Like I literally have a list of 25 different of them.
Damn.
It's kind of insane actually. And so like most of these companies, and I can't name names because like, talking crap about your competitors is like a stupid thing to do, right? But like ultimately, like there are quite a few of them. And if you were to simply Google, can AI write me a song, you will find them, where it's like kind of just like a, drop down menu. And then you click like, oh yeah, I want to make like a hip hop track. And then you click the button and then you wait for like 3 minutes and then you're disappointed by the result. It's like, and then there's no ability for you to like change it or like make it better, you know? Like it's sort of like surprising because like I think what it comes down to is that, you know, a lot of guys who sort of have a background like mine where they're like into AI and that kind of thing, like there's this huge interest in creating a model which can do something really impressive. And like that's cool, right? Making powerful
And
models
there's
is
things
dope.
like multifaceted model. What are they called? Multi-models, where it's like it's text, audio, like it's doing a few different functions all in one thing.
Like that's dope, right? Like it's cool to make powerful stuff, but like what is the point of making something powerful? Like you have to think about that. Like why, like what is the real goal? Like who am I trying to help here? And so then what you'll realize is like, oh, I don't actually want to just make the entire song and like not enable them to create it. Like that's not helpful for anyone, right? So yeah.
Yeah, and I think similarly to the tools that I've adapted as part of our production process, like it is like it's just one little piece of the puzzle. Like it's one little thing that it specifically does that like for the camera work, like that's one little piece. It's not editing the episode. It's not the brains behind the creativity isn't removed, but it's just one little tool that's helping or making my world just a little bit easier. Instead of having to even outsource that to someone, AI can do it instead. So what would be the difference, I guess, between like Soundry and like what's the primary difference between Soundry and like other music AI softwares out there? Are there like direct competitors to what Soundry does?
I think the thing that sets us apart is not the general idea, right? So there exists text to audio, there exists text to song, even. And I think our partnerships and the partnerships we currently have coming up are what really set us apart. We are really passionate about paying artists for their sounds and their influence. I know throughout the pandemic, working with companies like Splice or just different sample pack companies and artists alike and saying, hey, like we need to pay our bills and you can build a sample pack and you don't even know you can build a sample pack. You're a touring musician, millions of followers, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously I can't talk about the teams I was necessarily a part of, but like part of what I did during the pandemic is just kind of enable my friends that were much bigger than me, but didn't know that that was a source of income. And like Splice, a lot of people that are touring musicians and they're very skilled, very talented. They have all these stems and projects just laying around. People don't even know how to get onto Splice, And these these big distribution platforms are like, you're waiting 2 years to even get into it. But the idea is that you can monetize your project and your ideas in an abstract way. And I think that's something that a lot of artists don't think about. Because just like Mark was saying, I could go on any website and ask for like, oh, make me a tropical house banger or like make me a breakup song or whatever. But listeners are smart and like fans are really smart. They don't care about that stuff. What they care about is that one of their favorite artists maybe went through that breakup and now they're emotionally telling their story with the song. So we're really allowing producers to tell their story through these modules and allowing them to, in our future products and our future offerings, the sky's the limit. More ways that we could allow people to express themselves, both the artist and then also the user of the tool. I think that's a win.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. You still want it. I think it's the key part of your guys' message, and maybe something that definitely sets you guys apart is like you want to involve as much creativity to the user as possible. Like you still want, that's like the main factor. You don't want to take anything away from that. So that's cool. We've talked about the difference between like the different modules and stuff like that. And this in particular, Soundry is a text to text to sample module. Is there that would be considered a one? It's only one function, right? Or is there other functions going on behind the scenes? I'm not really sure how this works. So maybe that would be a better place to start, is a breakdown of how this even functions.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, and to be clear, also like the text to sample is sort of like definitely what we're currently working with, and like the grander vision is like we want to create a tool that artists can engage with whatever level of complexity they want. So like if the artist truly does just want to press a button to get a song, we should be able to provide that to them. But it's not just like a WAV file where it's like impenetrable and impossible to change. Like instead it's like a set of stems with like conveniently swappable options and like, this, that, the
Which
other
is
thing,
sticking
right?
true
Like,
to your core mission
right,
of
right.
keeping the creativity there. Yeah.
Yeah, because
That's
like
cool.
we have an intern, right? And I was in a one-on-one with him just chatting about what he was working on. He was like, yeah, like I was trying to use the tool because like it's fun, and he and I like have DJ'd together, right, in the Codex Collective. So, and we were just talking about like how he was learning how to produce, and he was like, "All right, so I have the click and the kick and the snare samples, and I'm like trying to put them into the DAW, but like it doesn't really sound like house." And then low keyed in the house, one of the other members, like she had made a promo video for us, right? And she like showed how she was like constructing it. He was like, oh, this is like how you arrange it, right? And so like there's a lot of things that people who write music sort of take for granted because they're experts at it, right? They've been doing it for so long, and some things just come naturally to them. And so what we're trying to do is sort of like in these upcoming sort of like releases, and a lot of this still needs to be built, but ultimately show a lot of these patterns to new users so that they don't have to just sort of come up with this stuff from scratch, because a lot of this is kind of standard.
How much standard practice do you like need to know? How, like, what level of on the scale of like green to expert, what level kind of do you need to be at least to use Soundry?
I mean, the cool thing is you could use it right now and you could know nothing, or you could be an expert in your field and you just need a very specific type of white noise hi-hat. I use that as an example because that's what I do. So there tends to be a spectrum of use from beginner to expert. When you start talking about experts with any audio tool, they usually find little niches where they could use a given tool or plugin, and it just fits really neatly inside this little tiny, maybe it's abstract kick impact with white noise, and they have this one obscure plugin for that. But the cool thing is, as you start to go the other way on the spectrum to the beginners, you see that they tend to try to use a plugin for everything. They have a smaller pool because they want to understand the scope of a plugin and be able to apply it to more scenarios. But to answer your question, right now we're really focused on building out the interface to make it even easier for someone who's getting into music as to use it as an educational tool, and then be able to expand or contract, their level of effort towards getting their ideas down on paper.
That's what I was going to ask, is if you could, especially when you're talking about the stems and the future stuff that you guys are working on, I was like, I wonder if someone could like learn basically how to produce by just kind of interacting with this AI. It's be a cool learning tool too, not just a production tool. That seems to be even different from a lot of other music AIs out there. Like, I don't know how many of them, maybe you guys would know more than me, but how many of them could actually be used as like an educational tool too? Well, I wanted to talk to Mark a little bit more about the different companies and like your past experience before getting to the point of developing this company. I know you've founded a couple different companies. First, what are the companies, and what pieces of those companies have you adopted and now taken to this project?
Yeah. So I think like the first company that I ever started was Firebrand Innovations. It's kind of a silly name, but I started it because, this is crazy, but like the first patent that I ever got, I got at the age of 18. I literally,
I went to your website and you have like a list of patents too. All your degree. That was very professional. I was impressed.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's really fun, and we're obviously in the process of putting in patents for the stuff we're currently working on as well. But yeah, I guess it was like really fun because I really cared about engineering, like from a very young age. And so like science fair was thrilling to me because there weren't really a lot of there weren't a lot of classes about engineering per se in high school. It was really like science. And science is cool, but like I wanted to build shit, right? I wanted to make stuff. I wanted to do things. I didn't want to just like learn about stuff in the abstract.
That's the fun part, the application. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was like, science fair, that sounds cool. What if I did engineering fair? And they're like, technically you can do that, I guess. Like, I'm like, great, I'm doing it. And so I was the only one, in my class who was doing a so-called, engineering project, but I cared a lot about it, And so I got all the way to like states, and as a part of the states competition, there was basically the people who came around to ask about like whether or not you could do a patent, and there was this prize that you could get, and they would pay for all of your bills, all of your legal bills. It was wild. So
how much is it to get a patent?
Okay, so actually, it's less expensive than you think for what's called a micro entity. So if it's just you, and like maybe you have an LLC that's just like making sure that people don't like sue you out of a house, right? So you have some like Shell Corp LLC that's like basically you, and then they will change the amount of costs according to how many people are in your organization. So if it's just one person, then it's pretty cheap. And so I recommend
But if it's a team, then it's way more. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you have a really cool idea and you think that this is like, hey, this is definitely something that I want to patent, you can do that. And what I recommend is you file what's called a provisional application. So this doesn't even need to be drafted in like full legalese, and you can still submit that, and that can still like start your, your first date, right? The date that you start your application in is like the one that matters the most because it determines like what your priority is. And that's really cheap to do. Where most of the costs come in is like the lawyers converting your like gobbledygook into like perfect legalese. Usually, if you say you have a provisional application, people are like cool enough with it to like give you the benefit of the doubt to like give you investment or whatever, so you can finally pay the lawyers.
So you at least need that piece of the pie before you start the financial part of the business. Since we're on the business topic, I wanted to ask kind of just like the building the team of this. I know, like, for one, besides that he's Bandlez, what gave you the trust in DeAndre to step into the position that you have him in as part of your company?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, honestly, like being a well-known producer and touring DJ, if anything, it's not that is like dangerous, right? Because that means he's like powerful and dope. He can do like whatever he wants. He doesn't need to hang out with me. He can like go be Bandlez. So I think that like that showed that he was talented, and that showed that like, well, especially when I started seeing him produce, I was like, God damn, this man is talented. But I think that like sort of we really sort of got along because we're both sort of like level-headed people who just want to do cool shit. Like it's sort of a very simple baseline level of like, oh yeah, you want to do things. You don't just want to say things, you want to do them. You know what I mean? So I got that impression very quickly with DeAndre, and so it's sort of like a really camaraderie sense around that. Like
Yeah, something I will add is like, obviously we come from the same world, which is funny, and then we also come from the complete opposite world. So it's like you start to gain trust in way, like there's no way around it. You can always have that base level of like, okay, he wants to do something, I want to do something, we're gonna do it. But you start to see like the compatibilities over time of like little decisions, how people act in certain scenarios, and definitely there's definitely times when you're like, huh, I would never have fucking thought to do that, and then that little like connection is just there. And over time, like enough of those little events happen that, that's how you start to build a relationship and the trust to want to build something bigger than both of you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Other than you guys, how big is the rest of the team with developers? And, and I'm sure there's different departments and stuff, but what does that team look like?
It's about 5 people in total.
Oh, okay.
We have it's not some huge
Not
thing.
huge,
What you're
yeah.
looking at is like literally our office. Like
Got it.
like, this is it. Like but so Justin is our CTO, exceptionally good at working with really sort of high bandwidth data applications, which of course is what we're working on. And then we have Davis, who does all of our machine learning engineering. He's exceptionally good at basically sort of solving the things that I break in our code, and he's very very good at sort of building out a lot of what we need to do. And then we also have Ray. He's our front end and has been helping us with some back end as well development. Built the interface that you see when you join. You can actually use the thing as opposed to just having to do a command line thing, which would be what the product would be if I was the one who had to release it alone. That's the team. And then we also have Becky, my wife, actually. She is, and that would make it 6, but she's really excited mostly just to be, helping out with the community. And so she's very engaged on the Discord. Like recently, she's been working with DeAndre to make these like challenges that you can do. They're not too intimidating, which I appreciate because music production scares me, man. It's like I like respect it too much.
I think I saw. What was it? I was looking through the Instagram of Soundry. I think I saw one of the competitions there. I was like, oh, that's a good idea for marketing.
Yeah, man. 'Cause it's fun, right?
No, ultimately, dude, it's like you said, man. Like you're a beginner. You're trying to learn. These can be used as educational tools. And it's really cool to kind of like say, hey guys, like today we're going to make a house track and the best one gets a pair of headphones, or like, like you get a gift card or something, it's cool that it works out for the marketing, but it really kind of like hammers home the point that we're trying to be artists first. And we're trying to teach people that, AI tools don't have to be scary. They could help you along to learn just like the AI is learning. So
what does that look like as far as like how much money do you need for one? Because I know any startup needs some form of funding. And 2, like what, I guess, does it look like from start to finish when you conceptualize this idea to making a final product? And how does finances kind of coincide with that.
Yeah, totally. So ultimately what it comes down to is that like you have to earn the trust of people who are willing to do shit for you for free. It's
Yeah.
required. Because like ultimately, when you get started on something, like you don't have resources, and unless you already have a lot of resources, unless you're very lucky, right? Like then you can sort of do that already. But most people start from nothing. Most people don't have like a huge bank account, and so you have to sort of like convey the vision of what you're trying to do in a way that other people understand, and they're like, yeah, I also have that problem. And so I
can
want to
very
solve
much
it.
relate. Yeah. I have two people under me with this podcast, and very much the same way. It's like finding the people who are, shout out to both of you guys, but who work for me, but finding the people who are willing to ride or die for free no matter what, because they see the vision. That's 100% correct.
Something that really put a smile on my face is, we went through the process of hitting up Bo. He's our friend that does like video editing and kind of like some of the marketing stuff, and like, they're like, hey man, let's shoot an announcement video. Let's tell the world that we're going to introduce this and blah, blah, blah. We post this video, and overnight it gets 1 million views on Twitter, which like for us, Bandlez has never been a Twitter first platform. Like we have like 300K monthly listeners on Spotify, like a bunch of followers on other platforms.
Yeah.
We just don't do Twitter, right? So
Twitter's
to
a
post
tough
that on
one, man. I
Twitter,
agree.
yeah. All of a sudden, I'm getting good and bad messages about it. From that kind of like evolved this community of people that are like really want to be at the helm of AI in music, because they understand that
there's a group of us that are like, this is actually helpful tools. Like, let's use this shit because it's gonna help me.
Yeah, it's here, man, and we can direct it into like the most useful or the least useful thing, but we got to put the work in. We got to put the time. So we have a really dedicated like foundational base of users that just like they were willing to help with the infrastructure costs, with the subscription, and like doing our closed beta. Like we invited specific people. We like based on their like interactions and based on them being a part of the community. We went out and we sent out the invitations, very meticulous, because that group of people, I'm not going to like throw out the words of like crowdfunding or anything, because it is revenue at the end of the day, but it's not cheap, right, to run a company. But being able to have this community of people that feel like they have their hands on their steering wheel with us to guide this thing, that's where we get like this. First of all, it's really encouraging. And second of all, that willingness to say, okay, I'll do the $10 a month. I'll be a part of this beta. It's just a cycle. It keeps us alive and it keeps us going,
Is it a membership type thing? Is that how people sign up and then they pay monthly to have the subscription, or what does that look like?
Exactly. And
Okay.
I also figured I should probably mention that like the having people do things for free is not a long-term thing.
No, definitely not. No.
I just wanted to be clear.
The people who work, I mean, they are getting some money, but the people who work for me right now, as soon as, hopefully, if God willing, bigger checks start rolling in someday. But when that time comes, I'm in the mindset of where like I want to give that money to like the people who have been showing up for me. You know what I mean? Like screw me getting paid. I want to take care of them.
Hey, listen, you also deserve something. That's
I know. Yeah.
Because like because I also try to like sometimes like, it's really important to stand up for yourself as well, because that's one of the things that I've been trying to do more lately. We want to be generous, and we're generous people. Like that's kind of why we hang out with people like us, right? But at the same time, like you need to respect yourself, because no one else is going to do that for you. So
That's true. I guess where I come from with that point of view, I guess, is that being like the founder or something, and maybe you can relate to this a little bit, is like being the founder. It's like I signed up for this. Like eventually, I want to pay myself, but like I signed up for this journey, right? But then like at the same time, like they working for someone else it's not your company, or it's not your specific, you don't own it. I feel like, and not getting paid, I don't know, it's just a little bit of a different standpoint. And that's why I guess I would lean more towards that, because they've been doing the work for me for free for a long time. So I feel like,
That makes sense, man.
Yeah.
But to elaborate on the funding perspective for us, is like, our goal is to do this for our full-time jobs, and so we're very lucky. DeAndre and I currently are doing this full-time. We've gotten a small amount of investment from folks. And so basically like the goal is to, raise enough investment such that we can sort of like kickstart the whole process and become profitable.
What are
And
most
that
of your
way,
costs? Is it just like marketing and getting it out there, or like what's the cost? Is there like development cost, or what does that look like?
paying my rent, bro.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, we have like, obviously it's costs from like our perspective, like the people working for us, and then there's also a lot of cost on honestly compute, like the cloud compute alone is like pretty expensive because we use like really nice GPUs to make sure that people can get their results quickly. So there's that as well, and then there's marketing as well. But now that gets into the boring part of the finance stuff.
Yeah. I'm just curious because, being on the entrepreneurial mindset, I'm curious. It's like the back end of companies is so interesting to me of like, where does the money circulate? What does that look like for like, especially for a startup? Like you said, you start with zero. Like how does the ball start rolling? So
that's
cool.
lots of graphics cards.
Yeah.
True. I guess that brings me into it. It's just popped a question in my head. What kind of computer and computing power is used to create AI like this?
Yeah. So we currently work with Azure, and they've been really, really kind to us. If you have an AI startup or if you have a startup in general, you should reach out to them because they are wildly generous. And honestly, like this is quite literally me shilling right now, but I'm shilling because they gave us stuff, right? Like I'm thankful. They gave us like a lot of free compute, and still we're sort of receiving that, which is excellent because we need to sort of build up that base so that we can actually like spin this thing out, become profitable. And so we use basically like A100 GPUs and A10 GPUs. There is a startup program. If you want to get started, look at the Azure Founders Hub. It's straight up awesome. I really can't say anything bad about it.
What advice would you give to someone who is hearing your guys' story, hearing about all this AI stuff, who's excited about, using this in their daily life, or even the people who are interested in maybe they have a passion for computer engineering and they want to develop their own thing? What advice would you give to those people?
Yeah, from my perspective, it's just, don't be afraid of new things because you might find yourself being the person that introduces that to a large group of people. Like, obviously, when I met Vishal, we started writing music, we were flabbergasted that people were willing to pay X amount of dollars to come see us in whatever city in the world we were at, And then you start to realize that you have the ability to influence something you care a lot about, which in our case was dance music and music in general. So yeah, just keeping an open mind and just kind of like saying everything new that comes in, taking it seriously and saying this could be good, could be bad, but I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah. Mark's side, what about from the founder?
Oh, to be clear, DeAndre is very much a founder. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Got it. Okay.
So basically like, DeAndre, myself, well, the entire team actually started at the same time. We all sort of founded this together. And so like, I think that, that's part of the exciting thing is that because like, I already had the Codex Collective, right? We already had that group of people, and and then DeAndre came in at like the perfect time. It's honestly insane to me because like I met DeAndre on that Thursday or whatever, right? And then the next Tuesday it was like the kickoff meeting.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
It was that fast, dude. It was that fast. It was totally crazy. But yeah, so like and it is also funny too because like the misinterpretation happens the other way too. Frequently when people talk about Soundry, they're like made by Bandlez, and we're all like, like sure, but like also not even all of Bandlez, like
that's funny. I know everyone. I didn't know if this was like something that you started since you're like more of like the engineering side of everything. So that's cool to hear that like everyone, it kind of all came. You guys all have equal parts and have like an equal share in everything that's going on. I wanted to ask kind of with the future of AI and how that's not only going to change our world and even down to like economics and how that's going to look for as things get easier for people, but what does the future kind of look like for you guys? Are you guys going to stay in the EDM world? Are you guys are you guys kind of primarily trying to focus on that? Are you guys expanding to all music, or what does that look like
right now? To be clear, the reason that we're really focused on EDM and slowly branching out in
it's the world that
different directions. Yeah, it's the world that we know, and like it's also the world that we understand the language of, right? So like there's definitely language barriers across hip hop, pop music, country music. Like these worlds, they work differently, and actually we're really excited to be branching out into them now. But yeah, I know just starting with something that you're familiar with, it makes the process a little bit more palatable, I'd say.
With the development of software, does that differ per genre as well?
It depends. So, like, the goal of the machine learning algorithms that we work with is that they're completely, independent of genre. I think what it comes down to is mostly like the training data, right? So, because we haven't just ripped the entire internet of all music and then training on it, we don't have data for every genre, right? We need to like work with actual people in those genres.
I
And
saw that you guys were working with some, I forget, Dylan Nathaniel, I think was one of them. That is, what do those people do? How do they add value to what you guys are doing?
It's really incredible seeing the differences in like bass music and then house music, where bass music, everyone's on Twitter, low key kind of like being mean to each other.
Yeah.
And then house music, everyone's on Instagram talking about how cool their life is and like showing like them like it's just so weird. Like culturally, it was a big shock, and it's going to be a big shock every time we kind of transition. But working with Dylan and DJ Susan, it's been really cool, really refreshing. DJ Susan was familiar with my discography, and like I really love hood politics. And so that cross pollination it's so natural that it just was a surprise. Because we all at the end of the day, we're all doing the same thing. We're all going no life on our MacBooks and then plugging in a USB, So it's been really cool, and just kind of learning like how that side of the industry does things has been like really eye opening. That there's more than one way to do it.
Absolutely, yeah. What are their jobs? What are their roles? Like, what do they actually do for you guys?
Yeah. So I'll cover like the artist side, and I'll let you talk a little bit more about the technical details, Mark. But from my point of view, it's similar to what I was doing when I would work with artists to build sample packs for them or to help them, facilitate them in how to do that, right? So we'll go over some of their songs, we'll have meetings, we'll talk about, like, what's your style? Talk to me a little bit about like how you think of your project, and trying to like from a high level understand what it means to write a DJ Susan track or a Dylan Nathaniel track. And then from there, you can kind of capture that essence and then translate it into sound. And I know that sounds kind of hand wavy, but it matters because you're telling these people's stories through sound. And then like obviously going through their songs, trying to like piece out different pieces of stems that matter to them or tell their story. And then consolidating that all into a nice, neat little package and saying, hey guys, this is their representation of the story they want to tell, handing it over to Mark, and then Mark does his thing on the AI side.
So once you get that data, then what's your role from there? How does that get used?
So, we have a sophisticated data pipeline that basically like automatically tags things, sorts it, does augmentation, and then does some filtering. And the reason why this is so important is because like we're operating with a lot less data than, if we were to like rip massive data, right? So like a lot of the like techniques that we've designed have sort of enabled us to sort of achieve the level of quality that we have now, even with a small amount of data. And like the basic idea is that we use, tags, specifically the artist names, in the training of the model so that the model is actually able to understand like what it means to be like DJ Susan or, that kind of thing. This is like really important because, in addition to being able to have like an additional revenue stream for these artists, right? It's also that like, if you look at a lot of different, AI applications like Midjourney, for example, like, if you don't actually sort of like have the ability to have an artist name there, it just becomes this bland sort of like average, style that you can see. It's like a Midjourney style. And so like, and obviously they have an interesting relationship with data. But what I would say is that basically like we are enabling people to actually go beyond that bland averageness, right? By using and combining even artist names. There's no reason why you couldn't have a Low Keyed in the House mixed with Virtual Riot.
Yeah.
You can do that in Soundry right now. That's just possible. And so, it goes beyond like being able to simply copy someone, and it goes into like being able to try to start where someone started and then, grow in a different direction from there. So that's really sort of part of the value from, this kind of thing.
Yeah, and with developing the AI, you kind of made me think about the user interface. Is that still technically on the technical side of like the development, or is that more on DeAndre's side where like the artist side?
Kind of both, man. It's kind of both. Yeah, this is something I'm really passionate about because this is the type of stuff that like you think you understand, and then you talk to like 100 users, and you're like, wow, I don't understand
shit, yeah.
a single thing. Yeah, like because you have to give people tools to like tell this thing what they want. And if you right now, actually, we're working on the ability to kind of like compartmentalize the text in a way that makes sense for someone to input it into the system. And that's just a fancy way of saying like not feel like you have a blinking cursor in that opens up a void to the black hole, because like ultimately we want to earn our spot in a producer's workflow. We want to be able to say, hey, this is what we are. And then for someone to experience what we are and then say, I know where that fits. And like I said before, a lot of the time, like with any tool, and you could be a beginner or an expert. Obviously, it happens a little bit more on the expert side of things, but you generally only fit into one or two pieces of an artist's workflow. So you could be using Soundry and just notice, hey, I really like how the kicks have this like transient when I click low key D in the house and I set it to dubstep or some crazy stuff like that. Right. So like just kind of understanding that we need to listen to artists and say, hey, how can we make your life easier? It then gives me like a whole list of things to present to Mark and the rest of the technical team to say,
To
hey,
actually carry
this
out
is what
in
we have to
development.
translate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, because I even looked at, you sent me the link to check it out beforehand, and I don't have Ableton or anything to actually drag and drop the samples into, but I just looked at like the interface and I was like, I bet just this key, that it's such a key, it's like where everyone goes to use the platform, but it's like the key portion of like, it matters so much what it looks like, what it feels like, so I could only imagine how much work and time you guys put into that. What on your side, what factors kind of, you take his information, what factors kind of go into your decision of picking through the things that he brings to you and deciding what to work on next, or what to develop next, and what's gonna what you should do instead, and what falls through the cracks, and what you actually make happen.
Yeah, for sure. So shout out to Manib. He's our designer. He's doing this thing called Design Gen. And so if you want to have an expert design things for you, then I highly recommend Manib. We were introduced to him through Ray. And so he basically has a whole workflow for designing out prototypes for how different things can work. And we haven't done too much on the side of experimentation yet, where it's like this like research idea where you're like, I'm pretty sure that if we moved this button on this side, it would like be more discoverable and therefore it would like work better or whatever. Like we're not at that level of sophistication yet, because honestly we're pretty new still. But like the goal is that eventually we're able to sort of be able to use some more of his skills basically. But yeah, the design is largely done by Munib, who we work with.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Well, we are getting to time here. We're almost at an hour now, but I do want to have some wrap up questions. So just really, what's the company's goal for the future? What are you guys like working on next? Whatever you guys can give away for the future plans, please do so.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about that, Mark? Because I know we've kind of been wrestling with this over the last few weeks, and I think you have a pretty clear vision.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Yeah, I think what it comes down to is that like we need to start thinking about like the specific people that we're building for right now. I think that we are this is something that I share with DeAndre, even if I'm a novice, is we're sort of dubstep producers, right? And DeAndre does even significantly more than just dubstep, like, EDM producers. And so like the question is how can we grow beyond that? While still making sure to stay true to our roots and making sure that the tool is still good for people like us, because ultimately, like, man, I want to still use this tool, right? So I don't want people to think that we're doing any dramatic changes, but like we want to figure out where the best direction to grow is. And so we're thinking about a few different options there. And so we're in a little bit of a soul searching mode right now. I'll be real with you. So we have a few different options, but ultimately the question is going to be like, how can we grow in the sense of like enabling people to make tracks, right? To be able to have this additional sophistication. And then also like what kinds of people, do we think would like this the most, So if you guys have thoughts about that, if that sounds like something that like you want, you're like, damn, like, yeah, I also struggle with arrangement or sound design or whatever. And I love this shit. So please, build out this feature or whatever. Tell us. We're on Discord. We're not some unreachable, monolith. Like I'm on there all the time. So like reach out, talk to us. Join up. You can join for free.
I have a
Yeah.
couple guys that I actually manage that I'm gonna. Hopefully, they listen to this episode, but I'm gonna talk with them about it, and I'd even love to get in that community as well because I'm obviously I have a passion about learning about AI. Thank you guys so much for your talking about it with me today. But I have a passion for it, and even though I'm not a music producer, I'd still love to see what the future holds for you guys. So yeah, hop in that Discord. Everyone go follow them on Instagram. I'll have all of those links in the description. And this last question, kind of, you guys can both individually answer as well. But there is one piece of advice you could give yourself when you first both started your careers in each respective field. What would it be?
Dude, stop fucking caring so much.
That's a
Just
big one.
don't care,
Yes.
dude.
Yep.
Yeah, like stop caring what you think, stop caring what other people think, and just do. Like the more you go do things, the more you're gonna have like feedback from the world that stuff sucks or that stuff is awesome. And the more you do, the more feedback you get. You can only get better.
Yeah, that's so crazy actually, because I'm going to give similar advice, but in a different flavor. Like, I think that one of the things that I really learned in my PhD was like what failure really feels like. Like I had never actually felt like the deepest kind of failure before, because I kind of like when I first started, I was like a hot shot. I was like, oh yeah, I got into like an Ivy League PhD school. I'm like the baller of big whatever. But like ultimately, like I really did like struggle when I first started. And so like that, really changed things from me trying to have this like grand vision for how my life was going to go. And instead it was like, we don't need to think like 5-10 years out. What if we just do what makes the most sense right now? And then we keep doing that tomorrow and then the day after,
Yeah. Who knows where you'll end up? Somewhere usually positive and somewhere very good that you could never imagine. So yeah.
Think about the future, but don't overthink about the future,
Yeah. Yeah. Set plans, but don't be too attached to outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time and for answering all my questions. I've learned so much today by doing my research and by talking to you guys. So I can't wait to see what the future holds for you guys and where this kind of leads you next. But yeah, thank you guys for your time today.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, you too, man. Stay in touch.
Yeah.